Hello everyone. Today we'll be discussing about the nervous system. Nervous system. What is nervous system? This is the system. The system. The system that's composed of two main things. Main things. Right? One, the central nervous system. The central nervous system. And two, the peripheral nervous system. This system basically composed of the two aspects, the central nervous system, the peripheral nervous system. Even though this system is made up of what? Of neurons. 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 And what is neurons? What is not neurons? Neurons are electrical or chemical messenger within the what? The brain. Human brains basically made up of neurons. Human brains are basically made up of neurons. For a message to pass, what do you mean by message? The information. The information either from the what? Either from the brain, to organs, and vice versa. That is, or either from the organs back to the brain. These are the what? Neurons are the major electrical messenger that passes the information from the brain to the organs, or from the organs back to the brain. Within what? Within the nervous system. That's the reason why when you are talking about the neurons, we have different kinds of neurons. One, you can have afferent neurons. You can have efferent neurons. And you can also have what? Intermediary neurons. You can also have intermediary neurons. Meaning that you have what? When you are talking about the afferent neurons, this is the neuron that passes the messenger from the what? From the brain to the organs. When you are talking about the efferent neurons are the what? Are the neurons that passes the what? That passes the information or the message from the organs back to the brain. Now we have the intermediary neurons. The intermediary neuron is the kind of neurons that are composed of the what? Both the afferent neurons and the efferent neurons. Both the afferent neuron and the efferent neuron. That is the intermediary neuron. At that place, they serve the function of both what? The afferent. They serve the function of both afferent and the efferent. That is the intermediate neuron. Now back to the what? We said that nervous system is basically composed of two main things. One, the central nervous system. Two, the peripheral nervous system. But this central nervous system is also made up of neurons. What are neurons? Neurons are electrical or chemical messenger within the brain system. These are the messengers. These are the what? They are the neurons that passes information back and forth from the brain back to the organs, back to the brain. They are doing it forth and back. And that's the reason why we say we have different type of neuron. We have the afferent neuron, we have the efferent neuron, we have the intermediary neuron. And that is one aspect. At times, afferent neuron is also called what? The sensory neuron. Sensory neuron. The efferent neuron is also called the motor neurons. The motor neurons. The afferent neuron is also called the sensory neuron, while the efferent neuron is also called the efferent neuron or motor neuron. And the intermediary neuron is still called the what? The intermediary neurons. Now let's come back to what? The central nervous system. The central nervous system. We say the central nervous system composed of the two things. Now the central nervous system itself and the peripheral nervous system. Yes, we'll be discussing about the central nervous system. Let's take the central nervous system. We have already talked about that the nervous system is made up of what? The CNS, and PNS. We have talked about that. Now let's take the CNS aspect, which is the central nervous system. This central nervous system is made up of what? It's made up of what? Two things. It's made up of what? Two things. One, the brain, and two, the spinal cord. The spinal cord. The spinal cord. The brain, which is the largest organs. Largest organ in human body. Because as far as the scientists say, it's composed of 1.6% of the weight of human body. So it's not just ordinary organs, but a very vital and very component, which is also what? Very heavy for human being. And it's developed according to the age. It's developed according to the age. So let's now take brain as our main subject. Brain. You know, we have left two things now. We have left the aspect of peripheral nervous system, and we have also left the aspect of what? Spinal cord. The spinal cord is under the central nervous system. Now, brain as a subject. Brain. What do we understand by the brain? Just as I have said before, brain is one of the what? Very, very important aspects of what? Of a human being. Because it has different functions. It has different functions. One of the main functions, let's just give a bit of what? Functions of brain. Function of brain. What are the functions of brain? Let's discuss at least a few functions of brain. One, it controls the internal and external system of the body. What do I mean by this? I mean that it controls the body internal and the external system of the body. Because human being, we have the internal aspect, we have the external aspect. The internal aspect of our body is invisible, while the external aspect is the only that is visible. When there is any deficiencies in the brain, the effect might be showing on the internal aspect or external aspect. Let's take for example, when there is deficiency in the brain that affect the skin, then the skin begins to have rashes, begins to have some elements of devolutions. Another aspect. Let's take as an example. Let's say penis enlargement. penis enlargement. When there is uh, a disorder that affects a particular aspect of brain, because brain have different aspects, the effect by resulting in penis enlargement, which is what the external system that is visible to human body. Let's now take what internal internal system. Let's say someone has what uh autism autism spectrum spectrum disorder disorder, which is what ASD, autism spectrum disorder. This is another what another brain deficit of brain disorder that affects what the ability to communicate, speak, and what do a repetitive things. So that means that what brain has the ability to control both the internal and the external system of the body. That is one of the functions of the brain. Secondly, it control other system. It control that system. What do I mean by it control that system? In a human body, we have different kind of system. We have different kind of system. So in a human body, we have different kind of system. One of the system we have is what is this nervous system. Another is what we have the respiratory system. Respiratory system. We have the digestive system. Digestive system. Digestive system. And etc. etc. We have different systems: the nervous system, respiratory system, digestive system, excretory system. Uh, as much as it goes. So, but the major function of this is that brain control every other system. Brain control every other system. When there's what, let's say example. Do you realize that brain controls what the respiratory aspect of the what aspect of an human being? It also controls the digestive system part of the human being. It is the brain that will initiate the one of the organs of the what of the respiratory system to begin to inhale and exhale the oxygen and the carbon dioxide. While also in the digestive system, it is the brain that will initiate for human being to eat, and when human being should stop eating, it is the brain that begins the process. So another aspect of the brain. So that's the example of what that's the what two major functions of the brain. So let's now proceed from that place. Brain. Now say brain is divided into three aspects. Uh, the forebrain, the hindbrain, and the midbrain. These are the major division of the brain. The major division of the brain are the forebrain, the hindbrain, and the midbrain. What do you mean by the forebrain? Let me change this to mid and this to hind. What do you mean by the fore? The fore is what? Anterior part. Anterior part. Where the hind is what? In the posterior part. Posterior part. The mid is what? Intermediary brain. Intermediary. That's just the what? The simple explanation of it. The fore